What is that one piece of advice you would give?
Find the reason that you want to get out of bed every morning and follow it through.
Love it. Find the reason to get out of bed. Yeah, that's the purpose. It gets you up every day. I'm with you. I've got it too. I've got the bug. I've got the purpose. Gets me out of bed every day. That's perfect. Succinct, powerful. That's it. Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of As Unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, and I'm so excited. This is a long time in coming. Lily and I have tried many times to get this done, but Lily is a world traveler, and her job takes her just about everywhere you can imagine. It is such a pleasure to have you here, Lily. Welcome to the As Unexpected podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. Very honored to be here and to meet with the fellow listeners as well.
Yeah. Lily, it really is an extraordinary background that you have, and I love the work you're doing now. If you could give our audience a short bio, give them a sense of how you got into the work you're doing and your current role, that would be amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scott. And hi, everyone. My name is Bosen Lily Liu. I'm currently the head of partnership and agenda setting unit at UNESCO International Institute for Higher Education, UNESCO ESAC. I have been with the UN for more than 10 years already, but I really want to say everything started actually with a semester at sea. I was a presidential scholar who sailed in fall 2012 voyage. We visited 14 countries, which was really, let's say, the first exposure for me to see how the world can be so different and how the cultures can be so diverse and how the people can be so welcoming and open to engaging with each other. And that's where I see hope in moving towards a mission that United Nations supports, in bringing world peace and bringing the consensus making into the picture so that we understand each other more and so that we can work together for a better future for all.
That's brilliant. So, how did you start within the UN? You've been there 10 years, different roles. Tell us more about how that really started.
Yeah, I think, well, when a lot of people ask me this question, I always start with saying, I'm one lucky story because my advisor, when I did my graduate school at University of Pennsylvania, he is a UNESCO chair himself. Um, so upon graduation, we do have a program that we have to do in order to graduate. And he basically did a recommendation for all the students for each cohort to, kind of link us to potential program that we may be interested in at the UN agencies, at the World Bank, at different NGOs. So let's say there's an element of luck, but I would also say that it involves a lot of planning because before I started my grad school, I was very dedicated in finding a program that actually has this very hands-on internship program integrated in it already. And at the very same time, the first day when I joined University of Pennsylvania, when I had my first meeting with my advisor, he asked me, "What's your goal?" I said two words: UNESCO Paris.
Brilliant. You had it. You had a
I
locked
did.
in.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea at that time what UNESCO Paris would bring me to because I've been to many other places after Paris through UNESCO and also through other UN agencies that are partners of UNESCO. But at that time, at least, I was so dedicated, I had my eyes set at the headquarters for UNESCO.
And when did you finally land at UNESCO Paris?
2015, June. Yeah. I still remember I got there. I landed. I was like, is it summer in Europe? It's gonna be a very hopeless summer because it was freezing. It was very much rainy, very different from the US. A very interesting start. But then throughout the summer, I slowly learned that the sun, can go on, shiny and all bright and all hot until almost 9 or 10 p.m. So the incentive to actually leave the office cannot be count on the sun itself. So very interesting start, very different
Yeah.
weather, but very interesting people as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Love it. And when did you start your current role?
Yeah. I started at UNESCO International Institute in 2020, right during the pandemic. I joined, okay, so I'll give a slightly longer version of sorry. So I joined UNESCO in 2015 in Paris. I was working across different teams, including information communication technology, education policy, and higher education. And if we look at, the three different sections, we see there's a lot of overlapping and there is a lot of, let's say, complementary support for one education section to actually complement the other. And I felt very, let's say, touched by the opportunity that was brought by this interconnectedness of the three different areas of work. And I still remember, I think it was the second month when I joined in Paris. I was at that time doing the systematic review of education for 2000 to 2015 when the Millennium Development Goals were still in place. And I was in charge of reviewing all the data for all education levels for all Anglophone African countries. And I remember there was one day that I stayed in the office until 2 or 3 a.m. crying over how, one big bomb arrives, all the efforts that all different development agencies had made collectively just vanished overnight. Kids were out of school again. Everything has started all over. And that's when I was really wondering to myself, what can documents that we do at the headquarters really bring impacts to the field. And that's when it planted a seed on me saying, I don't just want to stay in this very fancy, glamorous building where I can see the Eiffel Tower every day in Paris, but rather I want to go to the field. I want to talk to real people. I want to connect with the government. I want to see how they're taking different strategies. And I want to talk to my fellow colleagues who have been hanging there for years working on this important mission.
That's
So
great.
after UNESCO,
Good for you.
yeah, yeah. So after UNESCO Paris, I went to UNESCO Namibia, and I was in charge of two UNESCO Trust in Fund projects that covers 10 African countries together. And Namibia was one of them. And that was the first time that I was actually able to go into the different slums to see that there's really no infrastructure, there's no electricity. The only hope for kids to, let's say, to be incentivized to study more and more is to get the final gift at the end of the semester of a lamp so that they can study extra hours when when it turns dark at night. I was able to go into schools, talk to the students, talk to the teachers, and understand that as much as a lot of development agencies shipped in computers, tablets, and all this, they don't have the technical skills to actually make good use of them. So it was really an honor for me to actually work with them, starting from very basic information communication technology trainings, moving into education pedagogy, methodology, and then further on into what can education planning and policy look like, connecting classrooms, connecting people with national development. So it's only after UNESCO Namibia that I joined the UNESCO International Institute for Higher Education when I started as a policy analyst, basically covering a range of research topics, including the futures of higher education, how, what we should be hopeful for 2050, and let's say a diverse range of topics, which later on an opportunity showed up in 2022 when the Nations Secretary General himself conveyed the very first Transforming Education Summit during the 77th UN General Assembly, really stressing and highlighting the role of young people to be on the front line to shape the education that we want together. So then I got the role of leading the agenda on transforming higher education, which everything went really well with very, let's say creative partnerships approaches that the next year in 2023, a unit on partnership and agenda setting was established at UNESCO ESOC, and I became the head of the unit. So since then has been transforming education, grading higher education, partnerships in higher education, and higher education and peace. And we hope more to come.
That is a great. Thank you for sharing so much more detail. I want to go back to this decision and opportunity to be in Namibia. For anybody who doesn't know the geography, look up the continent of Africa, go down the west coast of Africa, and down there you will find Namibia. I have not been there. I've been to many African countries, but not to Namibia. I've heard it's a beautiful, beautiful country. Uh, but you went there and you were on the ground, truly learning rather than being standing back thinking you know what policy to implement. You actually saw the failure of some policy, the failure of some efforts to really find ways to make all this investment to work. So good on you for being on the ground, listening, asking questions, being curious. Brilliant for you. I'm sure it's served you very well.
It did, it did. And I also have to say that the experience of being able to work in Africa, and also I worked in the Caribbean, in St. Lucia for a period of time as well. And also through semester SC, I did my first independent research in Ghana and South Africa. So I think all those collective experiences have really brought this vision to my mindset that there's so much that the global south can offer. Because a lot of times when we go in, or maybe first reaction is they need something from us. But when we go in, we actually learn so much from them, understanding how they see life in a very different way. And I still remember the day when I first went into the slum in Namibia. I took some volunteers and some students with me. We fit 8 people in one car, totally illegal. I know that, but in Namibia, no one cares. So we fit 8 people. We're driving on this bumpy road going in. And when we got in, we started, visit family by family, and they were telling us how they were having one, let's say, decent meal per 3 days. And for the rest of the time, they were just drinking this colored powder. And I still remember I had my face like, ready to cry. But then we heard music. We didn't know who was playing the music from their phone, but you immediately saw those people who, based on the story we heard, they were starving. They never get enough food, but they started getting their feet on the ground, even without shoes, and started moving with the music, cheering with each other, hugging each other, and celebrating life, and celebrating the beautiful sound, and celebrating Mother Earth. And you started seeing people praying as well, just for the happy moment that they could share together. And to me at that time, it was very enlightening because I was looking at myself and always asking, how much do I need when I see those people not having so much, but still able to cherish this life? How much do we actually need to be happy? I mean, I know this is beyond my work on education, but that was a moment when I realized maybe there's an opportunity that we can bring those value that's very embedded to connection with the Mother Earth, to connection with humanity, into bigger spaces, into a lot of, let's say, the world with a lot of temptations, materialism, and all that, and be reminded of who we are from the very beginning and why we existed on this planet.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester C, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesterc.org. Maybe, Lily, that is the most powerful lesson we can all learn. And in learning that, it informs all parts of life, and for sure education, from pre-K to elementary to secondary. I think it is probably the most powerful thing we can learn. So that you really had that, emboldened in you, and you still clearly, when you speak of it with such passion and meaning. So even with what sounds like a very heavy administrative management leadership role you have now, it resonates with you even today, which that speaks volumes of who you are and the kind of work you're trying to do.
Thank you, Scott. And I agree with you. I think what's very important for all of us to remember is by the end of the day, it's not about our title. It's not about how much we earn. It's not about where we live. It's really about who we are, the values we carry as a human being. And I still remember when I first entered the space of promoting South-South and triangular cooperation, this is precisely the message that I have really, let's say, promoting in my own mind, asking me, can I handle this important mission of putting the global south stakeholders in the decision maker role? Can I boost their confidence? Can we just support and mediate while they take the pilot seat and run? And I'm very proud to say today that yes, we're doing it, and we're still doing it. And for every single conversation that we have been having with our global south stakeholders, we have been telling them to look into themselves first, to see the fundamental value they can bring into the space of humanity before they even think about higher education or before they even think about science, technology, and innovation. Because all those are really added, you know, let's say values based on the fundamental value of humanity first, and without understanding and trying to protect, the mother earth, the humanity that we have, none of the science, technology, and innovation solutions can actually solve what we're missing at the core.
100% agree with you. Beautifully said. Yes, beautifully said. What's the most unexpected event, occurrence, learning that you've had along this journey?
Wow. That's a very hard question
Maybe
because I
there's
think
been a
I'm
few.
learning every day. Yes. Some days the lessons are harder than others, of course, but I think it's, let's say, one of the privileges being at the United Nations is we learn every day. And most of the things that got handed over to the UN or we got exposed to within the system are not happy stories, because happy stories do not need to be developed. Whatever that needs to be developed are more or less the problems that we face. But I'll share a personal, maybe more or less a personal story that have a more, let's say, human to human touch. I have a very dear colleague who is from one of, let's say, the targeted countries now that's being, uh, let's say, under threat with war, with bombs, and all that. And there was a period of time when she would need to evacuate from her own country in order to be able to continue traveling, to carry on with the mission of the United Nations, to support others with what she believes is the right thing to do. And I still remember at some point I look at her and I said, why don't you stay home with your parents, right? Who are hiding based on her, in the mountain area, but they still have this safe bubble where she can spend the precious time with her parents, with her kid, and with her siblings. And she looked at me and she said, but I believe that what we're doing now is very meaningful. And that's the first time to me that I'm seeing first-handedly with my own eyes that someone puts the bigger purpose beyond her own interest as an individual. And how much I wish that this is what we see in every individual on this planet now, so that a lot of the problems can be resolved automatically. If we all think about what we want others to have, and if we think others all deserve a second opportunity, or a better opportunity, or a safer space, or more education, then everyone will probably gonna be able to contribute without anxiety, without fear, and ready to go with the bigger purpose.
Lily, so there's something there that I really want to emphasize for the listeners, in that you preface this story by saying it's a personal story. In my mind, what it means is you actually look at everybody you work with as whole people. So you're not saying, well, this is the personal life and this is professional life. You're saying this is someone I work with and I need to understand the whole person, what they're dealing with, and what their purpose is, and how they will bring that to their work, and how can I enable that the best I can. So I just love what you're saying, and that you're really attending to that whole person. It's something I certainly try to practice myself, understanding the circumstance of everybody who works here at the Institute and ensuring that they can be healthy and happy within their personal life, which will make them more successful as employees. So well done. Well done. Lily, this is a great transition point for a quote that I'd like to read to you and have you respond to. It comes from one of my favorite books just to pick up and read a page or read 2 pages. It was written by Shannon Lee, who is Bruce Lee's daughter. And she writes this book based on what she learned from her father. The quote is this: make room for the possibility that maybe you don't already know all of what you believe to be true. That what you believe is in fact a work in progress, capable of changing and evolving as you learn and grow. Change what you believe to be true. Be willing to change what you believe to be true. How do you respond to that?
I think to start with, I think it's a very wise a sentence that have been shaped by the author. And I think to a certain extent, I fully agree. I mean, someone cannot respond to something that they do not even know. So they cannot see the possibility if they don't even know what's the story behind it. They will not be able to make changes if they do not even see the possibility. So it's a train of thought. And I would say that hearing this really brought me back to semester essay fall 2012, which it opened my eyes to let me know that the world is not just China. It's not just the US. It's a lot more than that. And I think by being able to see what's more out there, it creates more curiosity and more openness to want to see more. And by seeing it, and with those curiosity and openness, I seek for more that's out there. And I think this constant journey of wanting to know more about the world in itself is the beauty of lifelong learning. We should continue learning every day to see what is around us, what's around the world. We don't have to go, very far, fly every day, millions of miles, but we can take one step further every day to get to know one new person, to get to know one more culture, so that at some point we open up those possibilities for ourselves to act, to respond, and to collectively support each other towards the collective interests that we can explore.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I love this fairly simple definition of curiosity, and that is a willingness to change what you believe to be true. It's only a few words, but it's really powerful if you think about willingness to change what I believe to be true, right? Just always open, saying, because humans, it's far easier for us just to hold to our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
It takes far less energy.
Mm-hmm.
But to be curious is that willingness to change what we believe to be true. And you've captured it very well. And clearly you're living into it in your work every day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
What is next? For context, I just want to make sure everybody knows that the UN General Assembly just finished not long ago. Of course, Lily was in attendance, and much work remains. She was sharing with me she was quite optimistic about the work that she's doing. Can you share with us a little bit about what that work is?
Sure. Very exciting news. We actually launched last Wednesday on October 24th, the official onboarding process for partners to join the United Nations South-South University Cooperation Network. So the UN Office of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation and UNESCO ESOC, we co-launched this United Nations South-South University Cooperation Network back in December 2023 at COP28. So for the, let's say, past 2 years, we have been piloting with leader universities and with collaborating universities and understanding how university from the global south can actually take the leadership in the creation of science, technology, and innovation solutions towards sustainability. I would say very successful because we had 22 viable new prototypes coming out of it, ready to be transferred and launched in other contexts. So now we're ready to move to the next step because we have been getting a lot of, let's say, attention and inquiries from partners on how we can support. And we want to, let's say, open up the doors and possibilities to the world that this is not a network that's exclusive to the global south. The core or the fundamental value is to have the global south taking the leadership, but we welcome more than the participation of the global south. We want to include the global north. We also want to include stakeholders beyond just academia. So it also opens up to companies, to the government, to civil society organizations, and youth and student organizations as well. So we launched it. We're very hopeful that moving towards 2026 to 2030, we're going to make one strong, let's say, last push before we conclude the Sustainable Development Goals with the collective efforts from everyone. And if I may, Scott, drawing upon the values that you have shared with me about us and expected, beyond curiosity, there's also courage and compassion that we hope all stakeholders can explore one by one and eventually at some point manage to act on curiosity, on courage, and on compassion in supporting each other and in moving towards development for all. Because by developing yourself, you're helping others. By developing others, you're helping yourself. It's always this wonderful circle of life that we're all in this together.
Indeed, indeed. And that plays right off, of course, my leadership model: curiosity, compassion, courage. I think if we just continue to exercise those capabilities together, we can be in service to everyone around us in important ways. Love it, Lily. We have just a minute left. This is a time when you offer that one key piece of advice. No matter where someone is in their career, you could point. I want to give something to early career people, or I want to give something to mid career people, or later. What is that one piece of advice you would give?
Find the reason that you want to get out of bed every morning, and follow it through.
Love it. Find the reason to get out of bed. Yep. That's the purpose. It gets you up every day. I'm with you. I've got it too. I've got the bug. I've got the purpose. Gets me out of bed every day. That's perfect. Succinct, powerful. That's it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. Keep traveling. Keep doing the things you're doing. It's really a pleasure. And hopefully we'll meet in person soon.
Thank you so much, Scott. And I sincerely hope that very soon or one day we'll be able to get another voyage together or go another trip together
That would be super fun.
as well.
All right.
Thank you so much for the invitation to the podcast. It has been an honor.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.